You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. Right now, I want to talk about what's happening in St. Louis. Right, remember the story that we did here on Roland Martin Unfiltered about those cops who were on social media making all kinds of racist comments? Well, there are cops in St. Louis who are now under investigation as a result of those comments. Yet, it's no shock, though, that the police union doesn't like what is going on. They also don't like the fact there's a black police chief in St. Louis. Well, the Black Police Union, they, of course, have been highly critical of what's taking place there in St. Louis. And I saw a tweet the other day that sort of got my attention, and by the Ethical Society of Police, because they were very critical of what is happening there. Heather Taylor, she joins us right now with the Ethical Society of Police. Hey, Heather, how you doing?
Doing good.
So here you have cops behaving badly, making comments on social media, but then you have the largely white police officers union who they don't want accountability, and so they're mad at the black police chief for holding cops accountable for bad behavior?
Yes, they are. It's outrageous, it really just is. And the chief is doing what he has to do. We have to hold officers accountable. We're not above the law. And many times we think we are, but we're not. And when we have officers that create an environment and unsafe conditions for the community and officers who work with them, they have to be removed. And when you're making racist statements and homophobic statements, it's time for you to go. And that's what he's doing. And, you know, along with the circuit attorney prosecuting people that we have within our department that have no business being officers.
So the St. Louis Police Officers Association, they asked their members to stand in solidarity by publishing a Punisher symbol to say they're in solidarity with the cops. See, and this is where people are greatly bothered when you hear, oh, there are just a few bad apples. No, this is an entire union defending the bad racist behavior of fellow officers.
Yes. And, you know, it's unfortunate that they're using the murder of Michael Langsdorff to make this point here and stating that there's a war on officers. And the reality is, in my career, I've been shot at, but I've never left those scenes thinking that there was a war on officers. That's just a bunch of propaganda. And what they're missing is the opportunity as a police union in the state of Missouri, in the areas of Ferguson, St. Louis City, with so much civil unrest, to try to bring the communities together. But instead, it's so much division that they're causing, and they're trying to use the Punisher symbol, a symbol that the creator doesn't want officers to use. It's a symbol of a vigilante, someone that's violent, that takes things into his own hands and by any means necessary. And we know the reality across the country is that we have officers who believe in that. And those officers are the ones that are killing people in our communities. And we can't stand for that. And you can't stand for a symbol like that. And, you know, the reality is that we have a logo. It's our badge.
What we're talking about is shameful, racist language that is indefensible. And this, to me, Heather, is why black folks and others don't trust police officers. Because when you have police unions in St. Louis, in Baton Rouge, in Baltimore, in Philadelphia, they will consistently defend atrocious and bad behavior. And so if you're a resident, you can't trust these folks to protect and serve you when they want to defend racists.
Agreed. And it's very difficult to have that community trust when you have officers who are openly making homophobic statements, racist statements, putting up symbols of violence, and consistently just demeaning the oath that they took to protect and serve. No one's going to trust you to protect and serve them when you're behaving like that.
Heather Taylor, Ethical Society of Police, we certainly thank you for your leadership. Thanks so much for joining us at Roland Martin Unfiltered.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Cleo Minogue, I want to bring you in. You dealt with this issue when you were in Los Angeles, dealing with these cops and their behavior. And this is why black folks do not trust police officers. because the union is going to excuse whatever they do.
Well, first, I want to commend Heather Taylor for doing what she's doing. Because back when I worked in law enforcement, I was by myself, and even the black officers were looking at me like I was sideways when I raised these issues. So apparently the climate has changed, and even in New York as well as in parts of around Washington, D.C., there are black groups of cops who are resisting white supremacy and resisting the abuse and murder of black people by cops. So that's exciting to me, and I'm glad to see Heather. But yeah, this is an issue that's been a problem for decades, if not centuries, and it's going to be a problem until we step up. And it's going to be a problem until we say that white cops are not allowed to police black people in black communities. That sounds extreme, but it's no more extreme than murdering people who have no gun and who didn't do anything wrong, who deserve to die. We have to step up because people become cops, Roland, for reasons that are necessarily to protect and serve. Some people become cops because they get to do what they want to do. They get to have a gun. They get to fulfill their fantasies. They get to overpower black men who they have always felt threatened by, inferior to, and felt like they wanted to do something to repress them. And that's what these cops are doing. So I'm glad to see Heather is on the job over there where she is.
Robert, again, residents want accountability. And unfortunately, these police officers are not doing what they're supposed to do. And that's why we don't want to hear this a few bad apples crap. No, this is about the blue line. This is about protecting the blue line.
The white blue line.
Well, this is the thing about that saying when they say there's just a couple bad apples. The saying is a few bad apples spoils the bunch, which means you're supposed to be rooting out and actively trying to get rid of those bad apples. It's not a few bad apples and everything is fine. What we have to understand is that white supremacists in this country, I had a guest on my radio show a few years ago who was an active Ku Klux Klan member in Georgia, and he said that not to worry about the people who are marching in the streets. Don't worry about the people wearing robes and hoods. Don't worry about the people with the Confederate flags or anything else. Worry about the ones wearing suits and badges and robes. Those are the white supremacists we have to root out in our community. And the fact that we as African Americans have to beg predominantly black cities like Atlanta, Baltimore, Detroit, St. Louis, so on and so forth, to have some kind of recourse for officers who act in this way is ridiculous. Going back to Cleo's point, we have to have fundamental reform in our policing system in this country. We have to have fundamental reforms that stop this from happening from the root and not try to be responsive thereafter.
Mustafa, this is what we're dealing with when we talk about systemic racism. When you have folks who are white supremacists, who are racist, who have the power of the badge and gun, when they are in these positions, oh yeah, when we see them, they change their tune. But now, because of this investigation, we now see what they actually say in the private chat rooms on these Facebook pages and expose it. And we're talking about officers across the country, not just there in St. Louis. This thing, and they only examined a few cities. They did not hit a bunch of other cities as well.
Yeah, this is something that Dr. Welsing, if she was still here, would talk about some of this psychological stress that these individuals are putting on our community, and also, you know, these games that are being played. You know, as was said before, if you take the oath, you should honor the oath. If you take and follow those ethical considerations that you're supposed to follow, all of those have to be put in place. I come at it a little bit different, and sometimes I might make folks a little nervous, but, you know, folks have been attacking unions in other forms and fashions. So we should be focusing on these unions and saying that if they are not living up to what they're supposed to, then we should be putting more pressure on them, and maybe there needs to be some changes inside of there.
But Roland, I think they are living up to their oath. See, we keep on using a rational frame of reference regarding what the oath is and keep saying, why don't they live up to the oath? But they are. These white cops get together and plan. We've heard way back when Rodney King was beat up, we heard gorillas in the mist. And we heard the police records in terms of what they said. So this is something that they do. They get together over their donuts and plan how they're going to kill black men and how they're going to come up with angles in which they can get off from doing it. They are taking an oath to each other to hurt and devour black people and stay in power. That is their oath.
Teresa.
Not all of them. So I'm halfway with you, Dr. Cleo.
Or you, the bad apple thing, huh?
But
oh, here we go.
But there is some bad apples. There's a whole bunch of cops that just don't follow the law. They don't follow what they were trained to do, to serve and protect. And so I said it before on the show that there has to be reform consequences, right? The only way consequences seems to happen within the police department is if we start attacking what they care about the most, which is their pension, which is, how the unions planned on getting that funding from federal government and local municipalities. If we don't start putting, some of their issues when we have body cam, we're showing that you're guilty, and yet the killing is still happening, the chastisement is still happening, and yet there's no retribution for the families, right? Outside of small settlements of $10,000, what is that supposed to do? You just took a life.
But where do we disagree?
The disagreement is everybody.
I didn't say everybody.
Well, I think it was an overall
I'm
type
talking about
of
a culture. I talked about the police culture and that they're taking an oath to do what they do among each other. I'm not saying it's all of them.
And let me add, again, I want to add this. You're dealing with places where you have black police chiefs. They don't like black police chiefs. They don't want those black police chiefs actually doing this. And so what else is it? And this is where people who are watching have to understand. You have to have city council members. You have to have mayors. You got to have black residents who are pushing back against these contracts and fight these police unions. Stand up to them and say, I'm sorry. There should be a zero tolerance. Fire them. Fire them. Every single one of these officers with this racist language should be fired from the police force.
But Roland, they're defending. See, I'm concerned about this bad apple metaphor here because the union is defending the cops.
I'm not saying bad apple. What I'm saying is,
I'm not talking about you.
I'm saying the
union is defending them.
Infrastructure.
The union has more than one apple.
2 points on things that we can do proactively to help these things. We've been talking about community policing since the 1960s. If you have people from the neighborhood who are patrolling their own communities, if you're drawing officers from the people who live there who aren't driving 2 or 3 hours in, you get better results in policing because you go to church with them, you went to high school with them, you know them. Secondarily, we have to have states waive sovereign immunity. These officers to have personal liabilities for their torts, not the taxpayers. Right. You'll get a whole lot fewer cops beating the hell out of people if you know you're going to be able to get their car, their house, their child's college fund, their retirement benefits, and all the way down the line. So those are the things we have to do proactively that can be done legislatively, not just on the federal level, because we think of the federal level as slaying this dragon. On the city council level, those things can be done.
I agree.
Final comment, real quick. Go ahead.
Real quick, in Philadelphia, in June, around the end of the month of June, the people actually did fight back. So that community policing actually did take place. And there was a bunch of social media posts given by Philadelphia police officers. Make a long story short, some of them are actually getting fired, and now there's some consequences actually being had. So that's a win for us.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. MarijuanaStock.org is another great investment opportunity. If you were lucky enough to invest in their last crowdfunding campaign, you, of course, now know that those folks are invested in a publicly traded company. They raised a ton of money in a few months investing in legal marijuana farms. Now, of course, they have a new investment opportunity, which is as good or if not even better. I'm talking about industrial hemp CBD. For those who don't know, the hemp plant is the cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD, which means hemp CBD gives you all the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the U.S. and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all the plants, which makes for an incredible investment opportunity, and that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. Their business model is real simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. You can invest in the crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200 up to $10,000. Like I said, you may not want to miss out on this opportunity. Go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org to get in the game and to do it now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.